So today I am going to be testing a finish that I'm excited to try out, and it is the Sheen Plus Oil from Rubio Monocoat. I'm a fan of Rubio, however, the sheen level is a little dull for my liking on some projects. So I'm looking for a satin finish. Today I'm going to try out the Sheen Plus, and we're going to see the results on blackened ash. And to get the black color effect, I'm going to use a pre-color intense black followed by oil black. So that is the color combination that I'm going to use. The process will be pre-color, let it dry, lightly scuff it, and then hit it with the black oil, let that dry, and then we will finish with the Sheen Plus Oil, which is the new product that I want to try out. So let's see, it's supposed to produce a satin finish. I'm going to show you what the results are on a chair project, so let's take a look. And I've got some difficult spots on this to do the finish. I would have loved to pre-finish, but I actually had to shape it afterwards in some areas. But so this really tight corner, this tight corner, there's lots of little nooks and crannies that I need to get in. So I'm going to attempt to use a brush and just kind of dab it in there. I'm not too worried about the oil because I can get a rag in there, wipe it and wipe it out. It's mostly getting the consistent black color that I'm looking for. So we'll try the brush, and I'm just going to apply everything. This is going to pop the grain a little bit, soak in all of that. So be along for the ride. So I'm going to take a rag and just wipe off some of the excess. Checking the instructions just to see if that was required or not. And I think really it's just going to prevent anything from globbing up if there's excess. So it's probably not a bad idea. You can definitely see if you wipe it too hard, you will remove some color. So I'm just dabbing. So normally I do apply with the rag, but because of those tight spots, it was easy to use the brush. Let me bring in the camera a little closer and show you kind of a close-up of what's going on. Okay, so taking this brush and literally just flooding the surface. The brush holds a lot of product, so it works pretty good, especially in that really heavy grain structure of ash. So I've kind of got this whole section done. I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the excess. Next steps, just finish the chair, and we'll go from there. So day 2, everything's dried overnight, and my next step is going to be mixing the oil and the hardener. Rubio has a hardener that accelerates the drying, curing process of the oil. One thing that you notice is it's water-based on the pre-color, so it will pop the grain. You can minimize that by pre-popping the grain with a damp rag, letting it dry before you do any finishing at all, and just really get those fibers to stand up initially. What I like to do is take a non-abrasive Scotch-Brite pad or similar red pad, and as I'm applying the Rubio with a rag to get it on and spread it out, I'll take this and abrade the surface enough to get rid of that water-popped feeling that you have in the grain. And so that's my process. There's a lot of different ways to deal with it, but first you got to mix it 3 parts of the color and oil to 1 part hardener. So that's what I'm going to do. And simply dip the rag, get it soaked, and just heavily wipe everything. Abrade the surface, let it soak for a minute or 2, and then take a clean rag and wipe everything off when I'm done. So to remove the excess. I'm going to take my pad and get it prepped with a little bit of oil embedded into it. And then I'm going to simply scuff the surface. Essentially, this is like a 600 grit, 800 grit sandpaper that's really just knocking down the fibers and really working the oil into the grain. One of the fun things about Rubio is it actually colors the grain more than it colors the softwood portion. So when you wipe off the excess oil, the color primarily stays in the grain. And that's why you have to do the pre-color to get the other tone as a uniform tone, especially in black when you want it all to be the same and you just want to highlight the grain. You have to use the pre-color. All right, I know that I've worked that section in. I'm gonna do the last little bit over here. All of these areas are not super critical, but I wanted to make sure that those spots that possibly could be seen were at least black. I'm gonna cover a lot of it with oil, but I'm not gonna be as intentional of covering the inside components that are gonna be covered by the cushions as I was with just turning them black. I've scrubbed everything, got the oil on, it's soaked in. I'm going to take this rag and just wipe up the excess to make sure that I don't have any heavy oil spots that are gonna dry sticky. So I'm gonna take this existing rag just to get some oil in it, make sure that when I apply that I'm not just filling the rag, they call it charging the rag with oil. So I'm gonna use this rag. But if you're doing a lot of projects or a table, you want to take a clean rag and wipe off the excess. So that's the steps moving forward. I have a test board that has the pre-finish on it. The grain, like I said, is a little rough. You can hear it. The color is really dark, but the oil is going to be a black oil and darken it up even more. And protect the surface. I'm going to use my red Scotch-Brite to scuff the surface and get rid of the grain. And I'm going to, on this board, rub it in, soak it, and then overnight let it sit. And I'm going to do half with the Sheen Plus edition just to show the difference between standard Rubio Monocoat and the Sheen Plus. I'm going to let that soak in and then wipe off the excess. Okay, so we're back today after this oil dried overnight. Everything looks good. And if you look close, it's a very matte finish. You can see the light reflecting very minimally on the surface, which is great for a lot of projects. I particularly want a satin finish, so I'm going to use the Sheen Plus Oil. And I'm also going to use the Universal Maintenance Oil, and color is pure. You can get that in black and some other colors, but I just want to compare those two for sheen because this is listed as a satin sheen, and this is listed as increasing the sheen, and this was the original way to bring the shininess up on Rubio products. So I'm going to try that in this section and Sheen Plus in another section, and then leave the original oil just to compare the difference between the three. No prep to the surface after applying the original oil coat. Saturate the rag a little bit, and I'm literally going to wipe a section and leave a straight line so that we can see the difference between the oiled and non-oiled with the Sheen Plus. So non-oil, Sheen Plus, and Universal Maintenance Oil. And I'm going to work that in, let it soak, and then wipe off the excess. You can see the color is a little different. This is also a little older. But I'm going to apply the same way and try to follow my line. This one doesn't have the hardener addition, but I'm not really sure what causes it to harden or cure fast enough. It's obviously, it's a 1-part mixture, no mixture. After letting that the Sheen Plus oil soak in, I'm going to take a clean rag and wipe off the excess. So to keep my line, I'm going to go against the grain. Looks like it might have pulled a little bit of color, slightly, nothing crazy. And this is definitely as hard as I would rub for regular finish. It's not too hard. I'm going to follow up with the clean spot on the rag and then try to go with the grain. Okay, and then now I'm going to remove the excess on a clean spot of the rag of the Universal oil. With the grain, and then this is obviously still wet. We'll look at it again tomorrow after it's fully dried, but there is definitely a sheen difference. You have your original oil with the matte finish, you have the Sheen Plus, and you can see that reflecting light, and then you have the Universal oil, which is definitely shinier, more reflective than the matte, but not near as reflective as the Sheen Plus, which is exactly what I wanted to see. So overall, I'm pretty sure this is going to turn out for the product that I'm looking for Rubio, increasing that sheen to a nice satin finish while still allowing the grain to show through and the color. So take a look, see what you think, and it's pretty obvious. All right, day 3 of the process is to put the Sheen Plus oil on over the black oil and hardener that we put on last night. It's dried to the touch. It's not cured, but we're going to put the sheen on over top, and then this will cure out over a handful of days because we added a hardener to the mix. So I am going to show that process, show it to you after I wipe it down. And you can see that there's a pretty dramatic shift in this very, very flat finish to a nice satin sheen. And I'll show you on the other chairs as well that overall it works pretty good to add the Sheen Plus, I think. We'll see once it dries if it maintains the sheen level that it currently is after I wipe it off, but it looks great. So let's go through that process. It's simply wiping it down again, wiping off the excess, same as the rest of the process. So as you can see, the original oil is very flat. The Universal Maintenance Oil was the original way to increase the sheen, and it is a decently flat finish, but has some reflectivity. And then the Sheen Plus edition, which is bringing it up to a satin level, looks great. I mean, it does not build up like a finish does, like a polyurethane or something like that is a film forming finish. So even though it's 3 coats of product, it still has that open grain that I love about Rubio. Overall, very pleased with it. And there is quite a bit of difference between the 3 products. So definitely worth looking into if you need to increase the sheen level. All right, that wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Rubio Sheen Plus edition. And as you can see on this board, and the reflectivity there's a lot of difference in the satin finish versus the Universal oil, which was the previous product they used to increase the sheen, and then the original pre-color with black oil on it. And you can see that it's ultra matte finish. So I kind of believe that it's an ultra matte, a matte finish for the Universal, and then a satin for the Sheen Plus edition, which For this application and this chair, I absolutely love it. You can see here the reflectivity on the sheen. Hopefully that's showing up in the camera. It works great for this application. The ultra flat wouldn't have worked for what I was looking for in this particular piece. Pros and cons of the Rubio finish. There's a lot that I like and there's a lot that I don't like about the finish. I'm a professional furniture maker, so I look for a lot of different options when I finish furniture, and the black pre-color is the easiest way to totally blacken a finish, even with an open grain like ash or an oak, where it's typically hard to get the color into the grain. Rubio pre-color does great. Then the black oil, then the sheen. It's just a multi-step process. It took me 3 days to do the finish on the chairs, so that's quite a bit of time compared to using like a conversion varnish or a lacquer that's tinted, which I could have custom made to tint and get a very, very similar finish look to this furniture, and on a production level that may be advantageous. Some of the cons are it cost me around $100 for the pre-color, which I can use on other projects, but it covered the 6 chairs, $75 essentially for the black oil, and I used almost all of it, and the $75 for the Sheen Plus. So the costs do add up. On this particular project, I didn't have to worry about overspray or anything like that. So I did appreciate the advantages of the finish, but there is a big cost disadvantage in my opinion. And I do this as a full-time furniture maker. I don't know about a hobbyist wanting to buy 3 products to achieve this result. So that's my 2 cents on it. I love the finish. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, please help me out by liking and subscribing to this video. I really appreciate it, and we will see you next time.